Peace World. It's your boy Cold World. I'm over here kicking it with my main man Jay Wiggs. What's good, sir?
It's good, Brody.
Can't call it, man. Just want to welcome everybody to another episode of Brody Sports Talk. We are off and running here. We're approaching 20 episodes. We're about a few episodes away, so definitely want to say thank you to all the support on all of our platforms. If you aren't following the Brodies, you need to follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. We are over 200,000 views and counting. We are approaching 500,000. We got to do a tally soon just to see exactly where we're at, but
Oh yeah,
definitely
we're over
appreciate
three hundred
everybody.
thousand by now.
Oh,
We got to be
we're
over
well
three
over two
hundred
hundred
thousand.
thousand. Well over 200. I wouldn't be
Got to be
surprised if we're closer to.
to
I'll be
five.
closer to three than we are to two. Um,
Okay, for sure,
yeah,
for
so
sure.
we're
I think so.
we're getting there. We gotta do a tally, but again, thank you for everybody for your support. We also got a few donations for our sports equipment drive as well, so definitely want to say thank you for all your support. Again, we are raising money for local boys and girls sports clubs here to provide financial aid for sports equipment. You never know, you may be sponsoring the next superstar, so we definitely appreciate that. But to get started, we're going to recap the last game of the NFL season. It's crazy to even think about how fast we got here, but fly Eagles fly, man. The Eagles take home the championship. It's tough being a Washingtonian fan to see the Eagles win, but this just goes, to show that the NFC East is still the most dominant division in football. We have the most championships out of all the divisions, and we just keep adding to it with the Eagles winning this year. It was a dominant performance. Wiggs, why don't you go ahead and give us a few pointers of what you think, was one of the biggest contributors to the Eagles dominating.
I think it's first of all, I think it's funny. You're a legit NFC. Hold on, keep both screens up because I'm not gonna get into it yet. I want to see your face on this one though. I think it's funny because you're a real Washington fan, and real Washington fans are like, we don't want the Eagles to win. Like,
No,
I don't care if they have Jalen Hurts. I don't care if they have like these players that I like and want to see win. I don't want Philly to win. So I think that's just hilarious,
I was
man.
hoping both of them lost.
I saw somebody else say that. I think Derrick Henry or somebody was like, "Yeah, I don't want
Yeah,
either one of them to win."
yeah, I
So
hope they both lose. F them.
So I think that's funny. But shout out to Philly. Before I get into it, shout out to Philly, man. Let me just give a little shout outs to Philly, Jalen Hurts. I mean, Jalen Hurts has come a long way from Alabama, being benched in Alabama for
Yeah,
Tua Tagovailoa, going to Oklahoma, kind of revitalizing his career, um, leaving Alabama and going to Oklahoma. So shout out to him, kind of finally reaching the pinnacle here in the NFL. Saquon Barkley, we know what he went through with the Giants organization. Did not want to leave. He was ready to stay there, but they didn't want to pay him what he was worth. We
crazy.
talk about Joe showing all the time, one of the worst GMs that still has a job. Just ridiculous. So shout out to Saquon Barkley. AJ Brown, another player who was ousted from the Tennessee Titans for no reason. Great receiver there,
Mm,
really putting up
mm.
numbers. Um, Ousted for no reason. And the Eagles, not only did they bring those players in, but we can start with the draft. They drafted Jalen Hurts. I think you can go back. I think this is his fifth year. So go back 5 years. The Eagles draft
Yep,
Jalen Hurts. And they just continue to bring in talent. So they go from Jalen Hurts. They bring in Jalen Carter, I think 2 years ago. We know what they did last year, bringing in Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. Look, I'm not going to forget the white boy's name this year, Cooper DeJean.
yeah,
My man got
yeah.
a pick six last night. And I guess I'll get into it now. Let's talk about the game. So looking at this game yesterday, what stood out? The defense. Automatically, it was the defense. I mean, I haven't seen Patrick Mahomes look this flustered ever. People say that all the time. Oh, I've never seen this. I've never seen Patrick Mahomes look this flustered in a game, especially let alone a playoff game. This was an incredible performance by the Eagles defense. You have to give the MVP to one player, and I think Jalen Hurts was deserving. But to me, the MVP of this game was the Eagles defense. Um, Jalen Carter, like I said, is just dominant up front. He may have taken the most dominant defensive tackle position player away from Chris Jones on the opposite side, who just couldn't do much for the Chiefs. We know the Chiefs' offensive line is 1,700 pounds of just pure muscle and built big boys, man. Like those guys were controlling the line. The Eagles controlled the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. Jalen Hurts again just controlled the game, and we saw what he was to Commanders. You know, we play a lot of attention to that stuff, um, and he just controls the game. He controls the game. He doesn't make mistakes. Um, you know, he does what he has to do to win, and that's how you win football games. Saquon Barkley, I think, had over 100 yards. It didn't look pretty. You know, this was a good. That's the one thing that the Chiefs did do is they kind of held Saquon in check. If you can say holding him under, he still got over 100 yards total, but you know they did better than a lot of other teams do. But Jalen was able to get the ball to AJ Brown, to Devontae Smith, the local Louisiana product, Devontae Smith. Shout out to him as well. I think Devontae joins a small group of players to win the Heisman, the
Yeah, he's
national
the
championship,
fifth player, I believe, fourth or
and
fifth
yep, the
player to
Heisman
win the
national
Heisman National
championship, and
Championship in the Super Bowl.
yep.
Yeah,
So shout out to Devontae Smith again, another player they drafted. So the Eagles are just showing you how to be a top-notch organization, how to build a franchise. I hope the Commanders are taking notes because it starts with the draft, but you also have to bring players in. Um, and this game was all about the Eagles. I mean, we can talk about the Chiefs and we'll get into the legacies a little bit later, but this game was all about the Eagles.
yeah.
Anything that stood out to you, Co, or what were some of your thoughts?
Well, I mean, the elephant in the room was that the Chiefs just got completely manhandled. I mean, it built. I mean, pure built to ass. You know, I mean, one of the biggest things that stood out, since we're talking about the defense, is the fact that they got five to seven sacks, right? They had a bunch of QB pressures, a bunch of QB hits, and they did this all with their front four. They didn't blitz the entire game, and that just speaks to the volumes of their defensive line. I mean, Jalen Carter was at the helm, but I mean, this is a legendary Eagles defense. I don't think people are talking about it enough with this win because, like, when you think about all of the previous Super Bowls where there was a dominant defense, you know they went up against pretty tough offenses. You know, like I mean, think about it. If you think about the Broncos Super Bowl that Peyton Manning won, they got their ass whooped by the Seahawks. You know, that was a dominant defense. You know, the Bucks against the 2002 Rich Gannon Raiders. You know, he was the MVP of that year. The Bucks whooped their ass defensively. I mean, the list goes on and on as far as dominant defense. Obviously, you got the '85 Bears, but this Eagles defense, man, like I've never seen a defense dominate like this from just a front four pass rush. They didn't blitz the entire game, and they had Patrick Mahomes looking like a Pop Warner quarterback out there. Like it was insane to watch. It was cringeworthy, but it also goes to show like how poor the offensive line of the Chiefs have been, and it's just been because of Mahomes' magic and a call here and there that that wasn't called or whatever. A lot of stuff got exposed last night from that Eagles defense. They exposed the Chiefs offenses really pretty much mundane, man. All they really have is Patrick Mahomes. I mean, Travis Kelsey is a shell of himself now. I mean, Worthy and Brown. I mean, they were pretty solid. They kind of showed up, but like they have zero run game. You weren't doing nothing against that defense. Their pass rush, like I said, was the most dominant thing, but their secondary was just as potent. Like they couldn't get open. Pause. But one of the biggest things that I couldn't understand that Andy Reid didn't make the adjustment on at halftime was they kept dropping Mahomes back. It's like, dude, he has no time. He's literally like 3-4 steps back. He's already getting pressured. Like that first series they had in the second half when they were doing quick passes and all that stuff to kind of gain some leverage, and took some shots when they can. That was helping, but like there was nothing they could do against this defense. It was completely stifling. They smothered them the entire game. They got completely outcoached and outplayed.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what you made a great point, Co. This defense was dominating on all levels. It started with the front four. Usually you say the front seven. This was just the front four. Jalen Carter, Josh Sweat did a great job commanding pressure, getting pressure. Zach Bond was a free agent signing for the Eagles.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't spend a lot of money to get Zach Bond. I think that was a player that Commanders fans wanted to potentially sign last year because we needed linebacker help. We ended up going with Bobby Wagner, and that worked out for us. Bobby Wagner had a really solid season, but Zach Bond filled in great for the Eagles. And then you take it to the secondary again, and the rookies. Just Quinyon Mitchell was making tackles. He was, there was nowhere for Mahomes to go to in the time that he had. Cooper DeJean comes up with a pick six, and then, like you said, two things that I'll say right here. One was the second half adjustment, but two was usually Andy Reid comes into a game. His first script, for the first one or two drives, is usually flawless. Usually, Andy Reid in a Super Bowl or, like you said, a game coming off a bye where he has that extra week, that first and second drive is usually flawless. And then they go into let's see what the defense is doing, and then the second half they make adjustments. They didn't make an adjustment until the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
Then they finally started going to Worthy. I don't know if they were getting the protection better or if the Eagles were just tired by that point. But whatever was going on, the Eagles came ready to play, and the Chiefs got hit in the mouth and they couldn't respond. This was one of
Yeah.
those heavyweight fights where they say everybody has a plan till they get hit in the mouth. The Chiefs got hit in the mouth and they're like, nobody punched us like this year. We played a lot of games, but nobody hit us the way that the Chiefs hit us. And it was pretty clear from the beginning that this was going to be a rout. I mean, I think you give the Chiefs respect. That's probably the only reason people stayed to watch this game is because it was the Chiefs. If this was anybody else, everybody would have probably turned this off at halftime.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people. There are a lot of I don't want to say the right people, but the white people. I mean, the right people were turning this off at halftime because maybe they didn't want to see the halftime show or whatever
Yeah.
you call it. I think Trump left early because
He was getting flicked.
he was
People were
thinking
flicking him off. That's crazy.
people were booing him, flicking him off.
But
He left
one thing,
early, man.
one thing I'll say that also played a big factor, which was so ironic that DeAndre Hopkins tried to mention this at the end of the game. But let's call a spade here, man. Like the refs, ironically, were working against the Chiefs. Like this has been a narrative. This isn't something that we made up. This isn't something that all the sports commentators made up. This has been a known thing throughout the entire season that the
And the
Chiefs have been
stats
getting
backed it up
favorable
too.
calls, that a lot of these games have been decided because of poor refereeing, and it's just poetic justice that they get all the penalties in the biggest game of the season when it matters. They normally they look like they play flawless football, but in reality, if you go back and look at the film, just watch all of their games. There's been several games where calls weren't called or calls were called in their favor that determined the game or switched the momentum, and Mahomes took advantage of it. It comes in all types of games. I mean, they're not the only ones that benefit from calls. I mean, I can be controversial right now and say that there was a holding call on the Hail Mary play for the Commanders. It was a blatant holding call. No one says anything, but that just comes with the game. But it's just ironic that we talk about how they got favored from the refs all year, and then in the game it matters, they couldn't even win. It was like the refs were against them. But that's pretty much all that needs to be said, man. I mean, the Eagles are They're the champions once again. They're the most dominant defense I've seen in years. And they're only going to get better because their defense is young, their
They're
offense
very
is
young.
young, and especially on offense, they got all their star players locked up, on contracts.
Yeah.
They got their quarterback already signed. They got their two wide receivers. They got Saquon Barkley. All of their guys are signed, man. So I mean, really, the next couple of
Let
years, we're
me
going to focus on locking up the defense.
let me say something about the contracts because the Eagles are one of the few teams that have handled the contracts well. And the reason is they sign their players early. They didn't wait to see what the players are going to do. When you see a player that's good, sign him to the contract that fits into the structure. When they
Yeah.
got AJ Brown, he was a top 10 receiver. They gave him top 10 receiver money at the time.
Yep.
Now, 2, 3 years later, that's not so bad because the cap is still going up, and that contract fits. Jalen Hurts just got his money last year. They gave him top 10 money. I think it might have been top five, but again, he
Yeah.
deserved it. He's been
Yeah.
to a Super Bowl. He's
And he
shown what he
delivered.
can do with this team, and he delivered. Saquon Barkley, top five running back, will give you the top five money that the Giants don't want to give you at the time that you deserve it. We're not just going to sign you to 1 year and say, "Oh, no, we're signing you to multiple years. You deserve it. We'll sign you." And we're not going to let the money go up because like the Cowboys realized, instead of signing Dak 2, 3 years ago, you wait, you wait, you wait. Now the price has gone up. Now you got to
Yep.
sign Dak to a contract that doesn't make sense for you or your organization. You
Yep.
still got to sign CeeDee Lamb. You still got to sign Micah Parsons. And now
Yep.
you don't have the money to do it. The Cincinnati Bengals. You don't want to sign Jamar Chase. Why in the hell do you not want to sign Jamar Chase before the season starts? You're wasting your time and you're wasting the team's time. Now you got
Hmm.
to pay Jamar Chase more money. Now you got to try to play T. Higgins. Now you got to try to play whatever the defensive lineman's name is. It's not going to happen. Sign these players when the time is right. As soon as they show you something, and this is the problem, Co. Usually this happens with black players. You see this a lot with black players. You don't see this with white quarterbacks. You see this with black quarterbacks.
Because
You see
Kirk
this with
Cousins.
with
That's just
black
because the
running backs.
organization
Yep,
was idiots at the time.
exactly, exactly. But usually you see it's either organizations incompetence, or you see it with, for whatever reason, black players. And the Eagles, a good organization, said we're going to sign good players. It doesn't matter what the skin color is. It doesn't matter any of that. These are good players. We can win with these players. Let's sign them long term. We'll worry about the rest when it's time to worry about it. And look what a good organization can get you. Shout out
Yeah.
to the Eagles again. Yeah, just a great all around win.
Yeah, they're definitely showing the pedigree to become a winning organization, man. I mean, they sign the right players at the right time. They draft well. They're coached well. I mean, Nick Sirianni, he definitely shut me up. So they're
Got
definitely
to
going
shout
to
out Nick
be.
Sirianni, big
Yeah,
Nick.
yeah. I mean, it's
Fuck.
they're definitely showing the winning formula, man. Like a stout defense and a run game that's virtually unstoppable, man. And then Jalen Hurts. I mean, he's the ultimate game manager right now. I mean, this is actually a perfect transition here, as far as the legacy and limbo here. With the Eagles win and with the Chiefs loss, like this kind of shifts the story, if you will, as far as these players' legacies. I mean, like with this loss, uh, Patrick Mahomes is now 3-2 in the Super. Yeah, he's like a 65% win percentage. Not bad. 3-2 is not bad at all. But right now, with this loss, the GOAT conversation has to be put on hold because these are now two Super Bowls that he's lost in blowout fashion. Okay, Tom Brady's never been blown out in the Super Bowl. And shout out to Stephen A. Smith because he mentioned this. He said, now you got to bring back Joe Montana into the conversation because Joe Montana is 4-0 with no interceptions thrown in the Super Bowl. Patrick Mahomes' numbers are they're not as good as people think. Like they're not as good. I mean, he had some good games, and with this
Yeah,
loss,
he's just a winner.
yeah, he's just a winner, exactly. And the stats from this last game are going to be Fugazi, like, oh, he threw three touchdown passes, yeah, but that was in garbage time. Like, he was getting his ass whooped the entire game. So, like, his legacy. I mean, he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. We already know that. He's one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time already. But as far as the GOAT conversation, you might have to dial that back a little bit now until he can kind of show that he can prove that he can win when it matters. I mean, I hate to say that, but this was a bad loss for Patrick because he got his ass
This
whooped.
was a bad loss.
It was a bad
Yeah, no,
loss.
this was definitely a bad loss for Mahomes. Like I said, this is the worst game I've ever seen him play.
Yeah,
And I'm not saying that lightly. Like this was the worst game I've ever seen him play. And it's kind of like Lamar versus the Bills. You know, there were plays in that game where you said, Lamar, that's on you. There were plays in this game where I'm looking at Mahomes like, what are you doing? You're stepping up in the pocket where the pocket is collapsing. Usually Mahomes is escaping the pocket and making and giving the team more time. In this game, it's like he was going right to where the defense was at, and it's like he looked flustered. He was sit in the pocket and then he would go to run, and it's
yeah.
like, Mahomes, what are you running for? Now the pocket's not collapsing again. Now you're running right into the defense. So that again, it shows you how well the defense played, and it really made you think, okay, this isn't about Mahomes. But when you start talking about legacy, it's kind of the thing with LeBron. It's not that people want to criticize LeBron. It's that we're comparing him to the great right now. It's only Jordan
That's
and
all it
LeBron.
is.
And Kobe. I'm gonna give Kobe his respect. It's only those three in the conversation. So we have to nitpick and say, oh, it was this, it was this, it was that, it was that. And for Mahomes, his pocket presence was poor. They weren't making adjustments. I didn't see him controlling the line of scrimmage. I think Brady came out this weekend and he talked about playing against the Legion and Boom. And he said, I think the second time he played against them, he was like, I know everything they're about to do. I studied them. I
Hmm.
watched them. I knew when they were blitzing. I knew when they were going into cover two. I knew when they were going to cover three. Mahomes didn't look like he knew what was coming next. And this
Nope.
was just a 4-man rush. No blitzes. 4-man rush. And you don't look like you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
That speaks volumes. And again, you're not making an adjustment. Brady and Manning, even Jaden Daniels, let's get an extra blocker in here. I don't care what the coach said. I don't have any time. Like, that's something as a quarterback, you could say, hey, I'm getting rushed here. Guys, y'all got to give me some more. All right. And my
Or
line might tell
change the
me, hey,
play.
yeah, do
Something.
something. Like, you got to figure it out. And that's what you've been great at. So, I don't want to put too much on this one game. This was a bad game. I still think that Mahomes is in the GOAT conversation. I think it's a lot like LeBron. LeBron didn't win, until he got to Miami. And Mahomes is still only in his seventh season, I
Seventh
believe.
season. So yeah, he's got time.
7 seasons. He still has time for sure. And I don't think the Chiefs are done, but this will be very interesting if Kelsey retires, if Andy Reid retires.
I don't think Andy Reid's going
What
anywhere.
is Mahomes? Yeah, but I guess that would just be my question: is what does Mahomes look like without Andy Reid, without
True.
Kelsey? That's
Yeah.
that's very very interesting because we know what Tom looks like, and I think that's why the GOAT debate for Tom is going to be so strong. We saw him with Randy Moss, we saw him with Deion Branch, Gronk. All different types of receivers. He got it done in all different types of ways, from the game manager to the air it out to the back to game manager again.
Yeah.
To fourth quarter comeback kid. So is Mahomes out of the conversation? For me, no. He's still in the GOAT conversation because he still has a long way to go. But I definitely think Brady is secure. It's not a 1A and 1B type of
Yeah.
conversation anymore. Brady is definitely in the leading position, just like Jordan is.
Yeah. I mean,
and and
rings
yeah,
matter, man. Ring
yeah, rings
lives
matter.
matter. You know.
Yeah.
So like
And Mahomes made it back to the Super Bowl. You know, he had to get through the AFC, which is a lot. For
Yeah,
him to make
he's
it back to the
definitely
Super
in
Bowl,
the harder conference. Definitely. Well,
yeah,
actually, I don't know. The
it
NFC
might
might
be
be the.
changing now.
Yeah, the tide might be changing. And one thing that that Patrick Mahomes has, that Tom Brady doesn't, obviously, is time. Like he has a lot of time ahead of him. Technically, he hasn't even reached his prime yet. If you want to be honest, so he's got time. But this loss didn't it definitely didn't help, man. But on the other side, this win did help another player in Jalen Hurts. I mean, I mean, obviously he has a little whiles to go. He has a couple more things that accomplish to be considered an elite quarterback. But I think this Super Bowl win kind of puts him in that conversation now. I don't know where you would rank him in the top 5 or in the top 10, but I would have to say he's an elite quarterback now because of the Super Bowl win. But it's not elite like Lamar or Jaden or Patrick. It's more so like that elite game manager. You know what I'm saying? Like I said last week that if they were going to win, he had to win with his arm, and he did. He didn't make like the super clutch passes, but he made the passes when when they needed to be made. And he's still one of the best running quarterbacks in the league. I mean, the dude can squat 600 some odd
Absolutely.
pounds. So like that tush push ain't going nowhere until they outlaw it. That's going to be a guaranteed touchdown for him every time they get in the red zone. So I think what this does for his legacy is it kind of puts him, in that tier now with all of the modern quarterbacks. Like you can't mention Patrick, Lamar, and Josh Allen and Joe Burrow without mentioning Jalen Hurts now. I mean, he's been to 2 Super Bowls. He beat Patrick Mahomes, something that no all of the other quarterbacks in the AFC has done. So it's like, yeah, this definitely improves his legacy. And if at this pace, they could win a whole lot more. Did we lose Wiggs? I think we did. But until he comes back, basically, that's pretty much one of the biggest questions moving forward would be is this the legacy of Patrick Mahomes and with Jalen Hurts. I think the Super Bowl loss kind of hurts Patrick Mahomes more than anything because, like I say, he's 3-2 now, and with that, I mean, like Stephen A. Smith said, you got to bring Joe Montana back into the conversation, or maybe even just another quarterback that has a winning Super Bowl record. I mean, there's a lot of quarterbacks that have better records than Patrick Mahomes right now. But time is definitely going to be on his side, so we'll definitely see how that works. But what we're going to do now is going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back here with Brody Sports Talk. All right, we are back. I had some technical difficulties here, but to continue on here with the legacy of Limbo here, Brody's, picking up where we left off talking about Jalen Hurts. Basically, like I mentioned earlier, because of the Super Bowl win, you gotta consider him to be an elite quarterback now. I don't know where he fits in the top 5, but he's got to be in there somewhere. I mean, maybe Joe Burrow gets bumped out now. Something, like you got to keep Mahomes as the top, in the top 5. You got to keep Lamar. You got to keep Josh Allen, even though he got a default MVP. Um, but outside of the big 3, then you can make an argument for other quarterbacks. Me personally, right now, I mean, it's Mahomes, it's Lamar, it's Allen, it's Jaden, it's Hurts. So, I mean, that this Super Bowl win does a lot for his legacy.
Yeah. So when you said the where does he fit in the top 5, I had to write down the first 5 quarterbacks that came to mind. So we have Mahomes, Lamar, Allen, Burrow, and then you get to the NFC and you have Jaden Daniels, and Jalen Hurts. I don't know who to take off that list because when you think about who had the best statistical season last year, a lot of people say it was Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson. So let's put those two in there, Joe Burrow and Lamar. When you think about winning, last year it was Mahomes, Josh Allen, and Hurts. Hurts was definitely one of the top winners. And then when you think about who's been in the Super Bowl the last 3 or 4 years, it's Mahomes and Hurts. So who comes out of that list? I don't know who I'm dropping off that list, but I
I'm
think
dropping
they
Joe
all
Burrow.
deserve. Joe
I'm
Burrow's the
dropping
one that
Joe
comes
Burrow.
off because
I'm
of the
dropping Joe
wins.
Burrow.
The wins and he's been hurt the most.
Yeah, he's been
So
hurt the most. He has the least amount of wins. He had a great comeback season this year, but outside of that Super Bowl run a couple years ago, he really hasn't done much. So, I
and he
mean,
lost
this
the Super
year,
Bowl too.
yeah, this year's statistics kind of saved him from being bumped out of the top five. But now that Jalen has won, it's hard for me to keep Joe Burrow in the top five. He hasn't really done much since that run against the Rams. So, yeah,
So I guess now I have to think, all right, so this is almost like the MVP voting. Oh man, we didn't even talk about that, Coach. Josh Allen winning MVP. We'll have to get to that a little bit later. But this is kind of a little bit like MVP voting, and you start thinking about who has the better team around them. You know, Jaden Daniels is doing a lot more with less than Jalen Hurts is, and Joe Burrow's doing a lot, but you know he's getting a lot of stats because his defense, you know, can't stop a nosebleed.
yeah,
So it's making his stats, you know, kind of bump up a little bit more. Man, this is a tough one. I think you're right though, because the best ability is availability. And with Joe Burrow not being available for a lot, this is not the first season. Like you said, he's the comeback player for a reason. It's
yeah. But
because he was
he's
out.
had two ending injuries.
Exactly. So that is a big concern for Joe Burrow. You know, hopefully he can stay healthy going forward. But like you said, he's been out for at least 2 seasons. I think that has to bump him down. I think you're absolutely right to move Hurts up because he's won the Super Bowl. Like you can't just look past that. And he beat Mahomes.
Yep,
You know, to be the champion, you have to beat the champion. And they did it in convincing fashion. It wasn't just the defense. This offense was scoring.
yep.
This offense was getting out there, and I don't even remember them punting. Like they probably did punt, but
I don't
this
think they did.
offense, yeah, this offense was moving. This was not just a defensive game. This was a full on ass whooping.
Yep,
So yeah, Hurts definitely, and like you said, he's one of the best runners in the game that we have, and not just runners, but he's not getting hurt. You know, when Jaden runs, you kind of have that, oh, get down, oh, make sure you
yeah.
slide. When Jalen Hurts is running, he's built well enough for you to
He's a
say like
stocky
you're
dude.
he's a stocky dude, so you feel pretty confident. I mean, my man is what did it say, squatting 600. Him and Saquon are both squatting 600 pounds. You talked about the tush push and the ability that he has to do that. Josh Allen wasn't doing the tush push as well. You know, they missed out on beating Mahomes because Josh Allen couldn't do the tush push. So you got it. You have to give him his credit. He's playing the game the way we see the modern quarterback playing it, and he's doing it well. So, man, I mean, I think the people would love to see us disagree, but I think you're absolutely right on this one, Cole. Like Joe Burrow can go to number 6, and if he
Yeah,
can stay healthy and get his team into the playoffs, then he can get back on the list. But I think for right now, Hurts deserves to be in that top 5.
yeah. I think the Super Bowl win has helped him get into the top five. I don't see any reason why not. But let us know what you think, Brodies. Who's in your top five as far as the top five quarterbacks going into next season, and what do you think the Super Bowl win and losses does for these quarterbacks? But go ahead, Wicks.
Now, before we move on, I did have a few other players. Let me know what you think about these players' legacy and how it's affected in this game. You mentioned Mahomes is a first ballot Hall of Famer. We agree on that. Jalen Hurts is making his case to be a Hall of Famer. He's doing a great job. What about, let's start two. I'll give you two on the Chiefs and two on the Eagles. Travis Kelsey and Chris Jones. What are your Hall of Fame thoughts on Travis Kelsey and Chris Jones?
I mean, Travis Kelsey's first ballot. I mean, he's arguably the greatest tight end of all time. But It's we're watching the decline of a superstar in real time, which is tough to watch, but that's just the life of a football player. I mean, he's literally his production is going down in front, in our very, in front of our eyes. But I mean, he's already going in the Hall of Fame. Like I said, first ballot Hall of Famer. This loss doesn't affect that. But I would say it does hurt his chances of being labeled the greatest tight end of all time. Me personally, I think that goes to Rob Gronkowski. And then you can make your argument from Gonzalez to Sharp or recent Hall of Fame inductee Antonio Gates. You can definitely make your cases there. But as far as Chris Jones goes, I mean he hasn't won a Defensive Player of the Year, if I'm not mistaken.
Not
So
yet.
from a Hall of Fame standpoint, I think he needs to get some more personal accolades. I mean, let's be honest, the Super Bowl last year was won off of his back, so I'll give him that. But I mean, he hasn't had any standout seasons to where he's been considered Defensive Player of the Year. Like they don't even mention his name. So, from a legacy standpoint, he's got to do some more personal accolades. He's got the ring, so he's good to go there. But now he needs to get some more personal accolades. But who did you have
It
for the
makes me
Eagles?
think. So it makes me think of. I think it was Aaron Donald that was kind of the best defensive tackle. Chris Jones kind of had the 1 year between Aaron Donald, and now it's almost like we're passing the torch to Jalen Carter. So I
Yeah,
think Chris Jones might have to do a little bit more. He's definitely in the conversation for best defensive tackles, but you're right. He hasn't been defensive player of the year. I think
he's
he
going to
got a
go on
lot
the
of
Ring of Fame for the Chiefs. He'll be a Chief Hall of Fame.
definitely in the Chiefs Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
I think Travis Kelsey. I'm actually thinking Travis. If he doesn't respond next year and they don't win a chip, I think Travis Kelsey might not be first ballot. He's definitely Hall of Fame,
What?
but I think he might not be first ballot.
He's
And
got 3 rings.
he's got 3 rings, but for whatever reason, I think sometimes these Hall of Fame, the people that are doing the voting, can be wishy washy, and a
Don't
lot
even get
of
me started on
the
that shit.
a lot of the Chiefs' success goes through Mahomes, and I could just see them being a little funny with Kelsey. But like I said, I think he's got to get in within the first 3 years. But I think that first ballot is definitely like something that they're like, this is only reserved for special people. So we'll see. And the
I
reason
think
I
he's the
say that is
first
because
ballot.
of the reason I say that is because who got in this year. There were some players I thought were gonna be first ballot Hall of Famers, and they didn't get
Yeah, that's a
in.
good point. That's a good point.
And
I do not get the voting for the Hall of Fame. That's definitely something that we'll definitely have to cover the closer we get to the Hall of Fame ceremony in August,
yeah,
because there were some players that if you go back and check the catalog, Brody's already spoke on who we thought should get in or who we thought wasn't going to get in. I told you Fred Taylor wasn't going to get in. Told you Steve Smith
yeah,
Sr. wasn't going to get in. I
definitely
was
did.
I was definitely shocked that Luke Kuechly didn't get in. I was shocked that Adam Vinatieri didn't get in. So yeah,
I thought
that's a good point, Rich.
Vinatieri has how many rings? How many rings does Vinatieri have?
He's got three.
At, at
That's a
least
good point.
three.
That's a good point.
So that's one of those. So all right, let me get to the Eagles. What are your thoughts on, as far as Hall of Fame, Saquon Barkley and AJ Brown?
Well, I mean, Saquon Barkley had a hell of a year. I think if he would have broke the
He broke
all-time
the
rushing
he
record,
broke the record for most rushing yards in a complete season, regular and playoffs. So he did
yeah,
break that record.
that stat helps. Breaking the all-time single-season rushing record probably would have helped as much, but I mean, Saquon Barkley has not had a Hall of Fame career yet. He's had a great resurgent year. 2,000 yards rushing, 2,500 plus yards total, Super Bowl, the whole nine. Great year. He got his vengeance, with the Giants, but he's not a Hall of Famer. Like he's going to have to do a whole lot more. He's got to win a couple of more rushing titles, maybe another Super Bowl. Just depending on the playoff runs, maybe they'll win a few more division titles, a few more playoff wins, something like that. But running backs don't get any love like they used to in the 90s. So he's going to have to do a whole lot more, man. Like he's going to
He's
have
been
to,
injured a lot too.
He's been injured most of his career. He's going to have to win a few more rushing titles, one or two, something like that. I mean, he's the best running back in the league now, so we'll see what he does next year. But I mean, no, he's not a Hall of Famer. Neither is AJ Brown. They got to do a lot more. I mean, AJ Brown hasn't even led the league in receiving yet, so there's a lot of stuff that he needs to do. He's not going to do that on that run dominant team. So no, not Hall of Famers at all. Now, if you want to talk defense, Jalen Carter at this pace, this dude may be a Hall of Famer because one of the things that the Hall of Fame voters factor in is like, can you mention the sport without mentioning this player? And I think in time we're going to be talking about Carter like we're talking about
Aaron
what's
Donald,
Aaron Donald, yeah, because that dude is a freak. I mean, this is what his second or third year, and
only his third year, I think.
yeah,
Maybe second. Yeah, it's one of those.
it's only going to go up from here from him. So he may have the potential, but right now there's nobody on the Eagles team that has any chance of being a Hall of
That
Famer outside of Jalen
solidified their
Hurts.
Hall of Fame chances.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
No, I agree with that. I agree with that. And um, like I said, I think Mahomes first ballot, Kelsey is first 3 years. I think Chris Jones will eventually get in just because he has the same amount of rings as those two guys, and that's gonna matter. I think Hurts. If Hurts can get another couple of years like they got right here, even if they don't win, I think all he needs is one. But if they can stay good for the next 10 years, I think Hurts will get in. I think Barkley really needs to stay in this offense. You stay behind this line and do what you did and don't get hurt for, let's say, 5 or 6 more years. I think Barkley can get in, but again, he's got to do that for 5 or 6 more years. That's
yeah,
asking a lot of for a running back in
yeah.
today's game. And then AJ Brown, his antics might hurt him. We saw him kind of complain. I don't know if you noticed that in the Super Bowl before he got the touchdown catch. He
That's a
started complaining.
BAN.
He started complaining, and they were up like 18 or 20 points. And it's like, bro, we're winning 18-0, and you're complaining right now? Now they got him the ball, and they made him happy. But again, image is a lot. In this league, we saw what the Hall of Fame class did to T.O.
Hmm.
T.O. is one of the best receivers in the game, but because he was bitching and whining and complaining, they made him sit for at least a year. So AJ Brown, you might not even get in if you keep complaining without the production, because like you said, this is a run heavy offense. I mean, yeah, AJ Brown, you might have to go to a different team or get your attitude together, because at the rate you're going, I don't
They're
like
not
it.
going
So
to, yeah, they're not going to renew his contract because they're like, look, we're not going to, we'll just make Devontae Smith our number one because we have another number one receiver right now. I'll
and
take
we
him
just
on deep routes over AJ Brown.
yeah, and we
So
can get somebody else to block, because that's really all we need right now. So
yeah, man.
yeah.
But that's it for the legacy talk there, man. I definitely wish all of them the best, except when they're playing Washington. But we got a couple of important dates coming up here. Wait, why don't you go ahead and give them a rundown of some important upcoming dates?
All right, Cole, you're gonna have to give me some when you edit this, you're gonna have to give me some NFL music, some good music to go in the
Yeah.
background with this. All right, so the NFL season, this is a big reason why we started the podcast, was our love for fantasy, our love for the NFL. So we're gonna keep you guys updated as the 2024 season now comes to a conclusion. The 2025 season starts just a month from now. Again, not football, but the official league date starts March 4th. The NFL Combine starts February 24th. So we're
That's
not
right
that
around the
far
corner.
away from, yeah, we're right around the corner from some very important dates. If you guys are like us, all this stuff is interesting. We're going to be looking to see who we can get in the draft. So let's start with the first date. Like I said, February 24th, the NFL Combine starts. The last day to franchise tag players, which is a very key date, is March 4th. That's the
Mm.
last day to franchise tag players before free agency starts. Free agency starts March 12th. That's when you can start signing free agents, restricted free agents as well as unrestricted free agents. March 12th. That's about a month away. March 30th through April 2nd, the league has their official annual league meetings. Now, what happens during the league meetings? They can make rule changes, they can make schedule changes. I know we talked a lot throughout this podcast about some rule changes we would like to see. Those changes could potentially happen at the league meetings, March 30th through April 2nd. And again, we might actually see something come about from that. After that, teams can start doing the draft interviews April 16th through the 23rd. You know, that was a really big deal last year. We always see crazy stuff come out of the combine. They can do the interviews during the combine, but then they can invite players again to start doing interviews as well as to come to the facilities as well. See how they do. I think last year we had the quarterbacks come to Top Golf
Mm-hmm.
and see how they competed. You know, that was it was a lot going on about, you know, what are the Commanders doing? If they want to draft Jaden, why are they inviting all these other quarterbacks? So, you know, there's a lot to pay attention to here, especially with guys like Shador. You know, is Shador going to take interviews with teams past the top five? Is Travis Hunter going to interview past the top five? So those will be some interesting dates. That's April 16th through the 23rd. The deadline to sign a restricted free agent is April 18th. Now,
Okay.
that's just, you know, that could be a player like a T. Higgins. You know, if they're restricting him from going into free agency, the Bengals might say, we don't want to lose this guy. They're going to have to do it by April 18th before the NFL draft. And the NFL draft, one of my favorite times of year, April 24th to the 26th. You know, it starts on Thursday. We got the first round on the 24th, the second and third round on the 25th, and then the fourth through seventh rounds on the 26th. One of my favorite times of the year, April 24th through the 26th, the NFL draft. We'll have to see. I'm not sure what city it's in. I'll have to look that
Yeah,
up
I'm
a
not
little
sure what
bit.
city it is. I can look that up.
What later? But that's that one. And then May 1st is the last day to sign the fifth year option for rookies. This is going to
Mm.
be something we should probably do that for Jaden Daniels already. Like, just go ahead, give him that fifth year option. We need him on the team for the next 5 years at least. We can get that to Jaden already, but there's going to be a lot of rookies on still in that rookie contract who get it. Last year, we did not extend Jamin Davis. Um, we had a lot of other players that were still in their rookie contracts that the Commanders just got rid of. Jahan Dawson was still in his rookie contract. Emmanuel Forbes was still in his rookie contract. The Commanders just got you know, let those guys walk. So we don't have to worry about any fifth year options right now for the Commanders. And then to finish it up, we got rookie mini camps can start May 2nd through the 12th for all teams. In the middle of May, we're going to get the NFL schedule release. Not much going on in the middle of June. This is going to basically be that quiet period. NFL is not much going on. NBA is pretty much coming to an end. So that's where we kind of get that lull. And then middle of July, training camp starts.
Yep, that's when training camp
Middle,
starts.
middle of July, we get training camp. Mid August, we get preseason. And then September 4th is the first game of the 2025 season. So just some important dates to keep you guys updated. We will continue to update you guys as we go along in the season on, you know, the combine, free agency, the draft process, mini camp, training camp, all those
Yeah.
things. We can't wait to get into a lot of that stuff during the season. But those are just some important dates to keep you guys updated.
Yeah, I mean, the most important date now to focus on is the combine. And I like how they have the combine, then the free agency follow, then the draft. Those are the
I
three
love it.
biggest like parts of the offseason because that's going to determine what a lot of these teams are going to be doing. And we'll be doing mock drafts as well, as far as where we think where these players are going to go. I'll definitely be doing my research there and putting together a mock draft for all 32 teams. But The draft is going to be held in Green Bay this year
Okay.
at Lambeau Field. I mean, it's in April, so I guess that's
It
fine.
should be okay. They were in Detroit last year, and around that time, it still might have been a little cold, but it was a very exciting time. Green Bay doesn't have much going on besides cheese and the Packers, so they're going to be excited. The fans will be excited. The players, we don't have the quality of players at the top of the draft. At least I should say for quarterbacks, we don't have that top five quarterback class like we did last year.
Yeah.
But the draft is always exciting, and every team is looking forward to get better. I like what you said, Cole. I love that the NFL moved the free agency in front of the draft in these last couple years because free agency used to happen after the draft, and I thought it hurt the veteran players because you bring in young players first, and then you get what's left for free agency. I think it's much better the way it is now. Let's pay the vets that show that they're good, and then we can get rookies to fill in the positions that are needed after we pay our vets. The
Yeah,
NFL
it's going to be
is in a good
interesting to
place.
see how the draft goes down. Because I mean, great example. Like one of our biggest needs is wide receiver. If we get T Higgins in free agency, then how that going to affect the draft? Or if we get one of the top tackles in free agency, how does that affect the draft? So it's going to be
Or if
interesting to
we
see
get
how things
Miles
go.
Garrett, if we get Miles Garrett in the trade, we won't need a DN.
Well, that's another thing. Like if we get Miles Garrett, it's going to be a king's ransom. You can kiss 2 first-round picks goodbye if we get him, plus another player, maybe another second round or third round pick. I don't know, but that's definitely going to be interesting on how that plays out as well. But you know, these dates all tie into how can you build a championship team, which ultimately becomes a dynasty. So with that here, we want to talk about the top 5 dynasties in NFL history. Now, there's a lot of definitions that can be made to define what a dynasty is. I kind of take the meat from the bones, if you will, in this approach. Like there's a lot of that factors into a dynasty. It doesn't necessarily mean how many have you won within a specific amount of time. I factor that in as well, but I also factor in how many championships did you win during a particular era? Were you the dominant team, or did you win championships during another dominant team's era? How many championships do you have as an organization total? So a lot of that goes into play here. So to kick things off here, I got the Kansas City Chiefs coming in at number 5. Now they have a total of 4 titles. They won one in the early '60s, and then they have this 5-year run where they won 3. Now, I'm putting them at number 5 because of their most recent run, obviously. The Kansas City Chiefs, for the past 7 years, have been considered the best team in football. They've had the best quarterback and coach in football. I mean, they went to what, four
Five,
championships in six
five,
years?
five, five. I mean, yeah, because Mahomes is 3-2, so they're
Right.
3 out of 5.
Yeah, so I mean they've just had an incredible run, and none of these runs were like fluke where they backed into the playoffs and won a wild card game here and there like
They've
the
been the
'07
number one
Giants.
seed.
They were the 1 seed the entire time except for one year.
Yeah,
So that just speaks to the level of their dominance, and they're still relatively young. So the sky's the limit. I mean, they have the potential to win another 1 or 2 Super Bowls. So that's who I got in at number 5. What do you think?
I love the Chiefs. I have them way higher than number 5. This may be a little bit of recency bias, but I think, like you said, the criteria differs for everybody. And for me, doing it in one era means a lot more to me as far as Dynasty is concerned compared to how many chips do you have overall. And the era that we're in right now is the Mahomes era. This is a lot like the Jordan era where it's like, can anybody get a ring? Now, Mahomes, kind of like you said, like we said in the beginning of the show, Mahomes does fall out of that Brady Jordan kind of GOAT status with this second loss. Three out of five, 3 wins, 2 losses. You're getting close to a 500 record, and the GOATs don't have a 500 record. So,
Nope.
but like you said, they've been the number one seed a lot of these times.
Yeah,
Mahomes
all
is,
the times except for one.
except for one, Mahomes is setting records at the same time. His first year with Tyreek Hill, he set the league on fire. So we've seen what he can do when he has a dominant wide receiver. We've seen what he can do when he has good running backs. He's got a great tight end. He's willed Travis Kelsey from, just a great tight end with Alex Smith to Hall of Fame tight end now. Um, to me, I have the Chiefs number two as my number two dynasty.
Okay.
They are
All
number
right.
two.
Okay. Now coming in at number four, we got the Dallas Cowboys. Now the Dallas Cowboys, the reason why I have them at number four is because they had two stints, okay? They had two Super Bowl titles in the 70s during the Steelers run. And this is when they were dubbed America's team with Captain America, Roger Staubach and company. So, and then of course they had their title runs in the early '90s, where the whole dynasty talk kind of really started to be coined there because they won three out of four, three championships out of 4 years. So that early '90s Cowboys, dynasty, yeah, they were a team to be reckoned with. I mean, they got arguably the greatest running back of all time in Emmitt Smith. They have arguably a top 15 quarterback of all time in Troy Aikman, top 15 wide receiver in Michael Irvin, and then you had a host of other players like Darren Woodson, Deion Sanders, and so forth. But give me the Cowboys at number five. They have one more than the Chiefs. The Chiefs have four Super Bowls. Cowboys have five. What do you think, Wiggs?
So you get the Cowboys at four, right?
Yep.
Okay. And I have the Cowboys at five. So we're not
Okay.
too far off on that one. I think you have to put the Cowboys in. Um, I think their run in the 90s was definitely epic, but I don't think they had the best player at any of their positions. And I think that's a little bit of the reason I give Mahomes such a big edge is, you know, to me, Mahomes is the best quarterback in the game. Now, you can argue if he's having the best season right now, he didn't have the best season this year, but he still led a team to 15 wins. He's still been the number one seed all these times. And the Cowboys didn't have the best quarterback. They definitely didn't have the best running back because Barry Sanders is right there. And I'm not going to have any Barry Sanders slander on the show.
Oh, Barry Sanders
Emmett
is the
Smith,
greatest running back of all time.
yeah,
You don't have to worry
Barry
about that
Sanders
for
is the
me.
greatest. And we know Emmitt Smith has the most yards, but a lot of that goes to the line. Now, that's the one
Yep.
thing you might have to say that they had was that offensive line. I think with is it Larry Allen
Yep.
at left tackle? I mean, that dude was a beast. So that might be the player that kind of pushes them over the edge. Of what they had was a great offensive line, and then Michael Irvin, like you said, top 15, top 20, but he's not top five. I wouldn't say Michael Irvin's a top five receiver, but
No.
again, when you put those three together, you give them a great offensive line, you give them a great coach in Jimmy Johnson. I mean, that really, and then like you said, they became America's team with Roger Staubach. Um, so this is definitely a top five dynasty. I have them at number five.
All right. Moving on, we got the San Francisco 49ers coming in at number three for me. Now, their run during the 80s was unprecedented. They won four during the 80s. They won one in 94. So they, from basically mid 80s, well, actually beginning 80s, all the way through the early 90s,
Ooh.
they were the most innovative team offensively. They had the first running back in Roger Craig to run for 1,000 yards and receive for 1,000 yards. Their offense in the '80s coined the term
The
yards after
West
catch.
were they the West Coast offense, the first ones to
Yeah, the
do
West
that?
Coast offense
The
started
West
with
Coast offense.
with the '80s 49ers, and with Walsh. And yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
like I said, like his offense created the phrase yards after catch,
Mm.
and like they were the innovators of the short passing game, substituting for the run game. So like you know, check down passes, screen passes, all that was created with them. You know, where they're running the ball, passing the ball for like 3 or 4 yards to substitute the run game. So I got them at number three. Like I said, they got 5 championships. Through the '80s decades and early '90s. Joe Montana won 4 of them in the '80s. Steve Young
Four and
gave him their
no.
fifth one.
4-0.
So yeah, 4-0. So I got the San Francisco 49ers. That's the third greatest dynasty of all time in football. What do you think?
I'm thinking I might have to move them up. I actually had them number 3 as well. I'm starting to think I might have to put them over the Chiefs. And I think, like you said at the beginning of the show, Stephen A. mentioned this is no longer a conversation of just Mahomes and Brady. I think Joe Montana deserves some respect. And I think even using my own criteria, because like I said, you want the criteria to be consistent. Did they have some of the best players ever? And you think of Joe Montana, he's top 3, if not top 2. Like we just said, he's in the conversation of top 3 quarterbacks. And when you think of receivers, Jerry Rice is right there in the top 1, top 2, top 3 conversation. They had some great running backs at the time. And then when you think of their defense, I mean, they had some Ronnie Lott at safety, one of the top 5 safeties of all time, Ronnie Lott. They had some other great players. So, man, I'm actually starting to question my list. I might have to move the 49ers up to number 2, but right now I have them at number 3. So, and that's because
Okay.
again, I think Mahomes is young, and I think Mahomes can do more. And I think their run is not over. They already have 3. I think he can get to at least 4, if not 5. But I'm kind of questioning myself now, thinking about this 49ers team again. That's a really good dynasty.
Yeah. Now moving on to number two, we got the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, the Pittsburgh Steelers, uh, their dynasty came in the '70s. They won 4 championships in the '70s. So they were the team of the '70s. They got 2 championships in the early 2000s in '05 and '08. But they were the first franchise to get the six titles. And the Steelers of the '70s, they created a lot of rules in the NFL today because they were so dominant. The 5 yard bump and run was created because of the Steelers cornerbacks, because no one can get off the damn ball in the '70s with them. So they created the
Wow.
5 yard bump and run where the cornerbacks can't touch them after 5 yards because of them.
And we know
Um,
what their defense did in the 2000s, where a lot of their defense was so physical. I think they started implementing a lot of those. What's it called? Not roughing the passer, but kind of just those like penalties where in the secondary where guys are getting hit so hard. I can't think of the name of the flag, but it's kind of one of those like, yo, this defense is targeting,
yeah,
defensive targeting and stuff like that. That's a lot of the Steelers.
yeah, and like I said, they during the '70s, man. I mean, like they were virtually unstoppable. With Jack Lamb, and Gene. What was his name? Mean Joe Green. I think it was his name. But yeah, with Chuck Noll, Terry Bradshaw, not Larry Zonka. That was he was in what
Yeah,
Larry
Zonka
Zonka's in
was
the
in the Dolphins.
Dolphins. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Frank O'Hara, that's his name. Frank
Franco
O'Hara.
Harris, yeah.
Um, yeah, and Stallworth and all them other wide receivers out there. Like, I mean, they were just completely dominant in the '70s. And then the bus got one in '05, and then your boy Santonio
Big Ben.
Holmes, brought in that game winning one in '08 against Kurt Warner. So that's what I got for the second dynasty. They have 6. Again, they were the first organization to reach it. What do you think?
So I have the Steelers at 4, and mostly because I wasn't around to see them in the '70s. So I always kind of that's a little bit of bias on my part. I penalize them just because I didn't see them. But you
Yeah,
do have to respect them winning 4 in the '70s. That's big time. But from what I was able to see, the Steelers are a great organization. You know, that to me is a part of being a dynasty. From the owners, the Roonies are great owners. You hear a lot of good things about them from the Steelers. They do a good job of keeping coaches.
Hmm.
We have Mike Tomlin. Who was before Mike Tomlin?
Bill Cowher.
Bill
And then,
Cowher, and
then
you
you
know
got
they
Chuck
they're
Dahl.
very consistent with their coaches. Yeah, I
Three
love that.
coaches in the span of like 50 years.
I think that's a big part of dynasties. I'll get into another team that we left out after we finished this top five, but they did a similar thing with being consistent at a position. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think the Steelers just being able to stay consistent, but only winning two in the 2000s for me, and they were a little spread apart. I think that brought them down my list to number four. You know, still commendable, but with them having six chips, you know, you got to put some respect on their name. Like you said, the first organization to get six, um, but the ones in the 2000s are a little bit spread out. And again, I'll go back to my metric. Did they have any of the number one players at quarterback? For me, no. Terry Bradshaw was not, you know, the best quarterback. Big Ben is a great quarterback, but he wasn't one of the best. Now, skill position, you know, with Lynn Swan back in the day, very, very good. And, you know, our boy AB. AB is, he's one of those guys, man. So, skill position wise, the Steelers had, and we know what the defense was doing. The defense was great. But I'll put them down at four.
Okay. And then coming in at number one, I think it's obvious. It's the New England Patriots for the greatest football dynasty in NFL history to date. I mean, their dominance spanned almost 2 decades. You know, so like I don't think people understand like this. This is a run that I don't think will ever be duplicated. They had 17 straight division titles. So that's unprecedented. Unprecedented. Okay. They got six rings and what, 8 tries? Yeah.
No, it was. Oh, you mean 6 out of 8? Yeah, yeah, yep. Six
Yeah.
out of eight or 6 out of 9, I think.
Now they did lose the Super Bowl to the Bears in '85. They got their ass whooped. I think they only netted like 30 some odd yards for the game. That just shows how dominant the defense was. That's another thing we'll do. We'll do top 10 greatest defenses of all time as well, because I think the Eagles have a little bit of an argument after this performance. But the Patriots lost to the Bears in '85, and then they went on. They lost to the Packers in '93. And then they got the loss to the Eagles, the modern day Eagles, and then they got two to the Giants. So they got 5 Super Bowl losses, okay, but they got 6 wins. So 6 wins out of 11 visits. I don't think anyone else has been to the Super Bowl as many times as the Patriots. So they've been to the Super Bowl the most. They've won basically the most. I mean, they tied with the Steelers at 6, but so they've won the most arguably. And but their run from their division one is the reason why I'm keeping them in the number one dynasty, because they literally won uh, 3 Super Bowls in like 4 years. Then they went on a 10-year drought, but during those 10 years, they were still the most dominant team in the AFC East. And then it went on another 3-year stint. So that type of
And they
dominance isn't going to be duplicated.
and they could have won more if they drafted better in the at the end of the Tom Brady era. I mean,
Yep.
Bill Belichick was just probably overwhelmed with all of the duties and responsibilities. Bill Belichick also ran Tom Brady out of town, so
Yep.
I don't know what was going on with Bill. Maybe the fame and the ego was getting to his head, but I mean, this we know Brady went on to win another one or two.
He won one without him. He won
Yeah, so
with the
he
Bucks.
and I think he went to two Super Bowls without him, but he won one. So I mean, yeah, the Patriots definitely number one for me as well. Like you said, and like I said, for my criteria, it's how long were you doing it in the era that you were doing it, and like you said, they spent. All these other teams kind of have, one in this decade and one in another decade later. The Patriots, 17 years straight. That's insane, man. Just and again, I'm a Dolphins fan, and being a Dolphins fan during that time period is no hope. You got no hope at all. As a Commanders fan and a Redskins fan, the NFC East has been won by a different team in the last 15 or 20 years. It's been won by a different team every single year. There's been that just goes to show you how hard it is to win a division. And the Patriots did it 17 times. Incredible. Brady is, let me go to my other criteria. Do they have one of the best players ever? Absolutely. They got Tom freaking Brady, the best quarterback to ever live right now. Um, we saw Brady go from game manager. I said it earlier, from game manager to aired out to fourth quarter comeback kid to whatever you need him to be. Bill Belichick is great game manager, great game planner. I mean, to the point where he was accused of cheating. I don't know if it's true, but they did get penalized for the balls being inflated.
Yeah,
But they say
great game.
if you're not cheating, you're not trying. That's what they say. And Bill Belichick for sure was trying to win as many games
If
as
you ain't
possible.
cheating, you
So
ain't trying.
hey, shout out to Bill and his young 24-year-old girlfriend as
Hey,
well, man.
just do your job.
Hey, do your
Just do
job,
your
man.
job.
The greatest
That's
of
what
all
you're here
time.
for.
He deserves it all. So I got the Patriots at number one for sure, man. We
Yeah,
agree
I
on that.
mean, there's plenty of other organizations that that can make their case for greatest dynasty. Like I said, there's a lot of things that get factored into it. I mean, the Giants have four, the Skins have three. I mean, one thing for the Skins, I mean, as far as top five dynasties, I mean, they won three during during the Niners era, in the '80s, and they squeezed in one during the Cowboy era as well. But they're the only organization to win three championships with three different quarterbacks. So I don't know if that goes towards the greatest coach of all time, which we'll be doing this season as well. But that would be more geared towards the coaching. But one thing that was consistent during all three of those Super Bowl runs for Washington was the offensive line, which is something that obviously doesn't get enough flowers, with Joe Jacoby still not being elected into the Hall of Fame, which is insane. But
And I got one team. I would say my the team that I would say is my number 16 will be the Packers. I think the Packers don't necessarily have the championships, but I think they're a well-run organization. The Packers are the only organization where the fans own a little bit of the team. I
yeah,
love that about
they're a
the
publicly
Green Bay
owned
Packers.
franchise.
You said they're what?
They're a publicly owned franchise. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I love that about the Packers. And you see what they've done with coaching. Their coaching has been pretty good, but the quarterback run that they've had, to me, is kind of phenomenal. Only getting one out of Favre and one out of Rodgers for two is not great, but it does show that they were dominant for a long time. They were at the top of the division and the top of the conference for a long time. They were always in it every single year, even if they didn't win it. So I think they're a really good franchise. I don't know that I could put them in the top five dynasties, and I didn't. But I do think they are right on the precipice, especially if Jordan Love can get one,
Yeah.
maybe two, then they'll start to have an argument. But right now, I think these five are the best five for sure.
Yeah, the Giants and Packers are definitely runner-ups. They both have four. The Chiefs have four, so they're tied at three. But the Chiefs have a more recent run, so that's the reason why I have them over the Packers. I mean, they had two. They won the first two Super Bowls, and then they literally went on like a 4 or 5 decade streak where where they didn't win anything. So, but yeah, I think that's fair as far as the top five dynasties. Let us know what you think, Brodies. You need to be following us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Click on the bottom right hand corner on YouTube to subscribe to our channel so you can get full coverage of the off season. Again, on Facebook, we are asking for you guys to donate your stars for stars. That's probably what we're going to end up calling it, or something like, stars for stars. We're donating as many stars as we can. It's 1 cent per star, and all the proceeds are going to go to local boys and girls clubs to provide financial aid for sports equipment. Again, you never know, you could be financing the next superstar. But definitely appreciate you guys tuning in. We're going to be doing full coverage of the off season. Next week, we're going to start talking about the needs for the Commanders. We're going to just talk about some position needs that the team needs, and then we'll also be following up with the just like the coaching carousel as things kick off with the off season. NBA is in full swing. All-Star Weekend is right around. WNBA obviously will be coming this summer as well.
And then March Madness.
March Madness is right around the corner. So we got a lot of stuff too. We got a lot of work to be covering here, Brodies. A lot that's going to be going on in these next few months. But until then, we will see you next time. Mr. Lord here, co-worker, my main man Jay Wiggs, and we're signing out here. We'll see you next week, y'all.
Peace.